The wine glass stopped halfway to his mouth when he saw the scar. My father-in-law's face went from dismissive to confused to something like fear in the span of 3 seconds. Behind him, his son, my husband Jake, had gone absolutely still, his SEAL team posture rigid in a way I hadn't seen since his last deployment. "Dad," Jake said quietly, "you need to stop talking. Right now." But I'm getting ahead of myself. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. "Sarah, it's Richard, Jake's father." Like I didn't know. Like we hadn't been married for 3 years. "We're having a family dinner Saturday. Jake says you're coming." A pause. "I'd prefer if you didn't, but apparently that's not my decision anymore." I held the phone away from my face, counted to 5, brought it back. "I'll be there. Try to dress appropriately this time. Last Christmas you looked like you'd wandered in from a homeless shelter." I'd been recovering from pneumonia at Christmas, 40 pounds underweight, still shaking off the lingering effects of something I'd picked up overseas that the CDC had taken 3 months to identify. But Richard didn't know that. Didn't know much about me at all, actually, except that I'd somehow trapped his golden boy son into marriage. "I'll do my best," I said. Jake found me that evening on our apartment balcony, staring at nothing. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, chin on my shoulder. "You don't have to go." "Yes, I do. He's an asshole to you. He's always been an asshole to you. He's your father." I turned in his arms. Jake was 36, carved from stone and stubborn loyalty, with eyes that had seen things that woke him up sometimes at 3 a.m. And he's a Marine. 28 years. That means something. You know what means something? You. Us. And he disrespects that every single time. I touched his face. "One more dinner. Let me try one more time." Saturday arrived cold and clear. I chose my clothes carefully, slacks, a blazer, a high-neck blouse that covered everything that needed covering. My hair was growing back finally, thick enough to style. I'd learned to hide the trimmer in my left hand. I looked, I thought, almost normal. Almost like someone's appropriate daughter-in-law. Richard's house was in Virginia, colonial and perfect, with a Marine Corps flag flying next to the American one. Jake's mother Helen answered the door with a hug that felt genuinely warm. "Sarah, sweetheart. You look wonderful." "She looks thin," Richard said from behind her. He stood in full uniform, dress blues, every ribbon perfectly aligned, a kind of display that said I'm important, respect me. "Jacob, your mother needs help in the kitchen." It wasn't a request. Jake squeezed my hand once and disappeared. Richard gestured to the living room. "Shall we?" The room was a shrine to military service, photos, plaques, commendations. Richard in various duty stations. Jake through the years. High school, Annapolis, Bud/S graduation, his trident ceremony. There was even a photo of Richard pinning something on Jake's chest, both of them rigid with pride. I wasn't in any of the photos. The wedding picture Helen had framed was conspicuously absent. "Drink?" Richard asked. "Water's fine." He poured himself scotch, settled into his chair like a throne. "Jacob tells me you're still not working." "I'm consulting part-time. Remote work." "Consulting?" He said it like it tasted bad. "When I was your age, I was leading Marines in combat." Jacob was already a team leader at 33. "But you're consulting." I kept my breathing steady. "The job market's tough right now." "The job market's tough for people without skills or discipline." He sipped his scotch. "You know what I think? I think Jacob made a mistake. He was lonely after a bad deployment, and you were convenient. Pretty enough. Available. But you're not. You're not what a man like him needs." The words landed like small caliber rounds, precise, meant to wound. "He needs a partner who matches his caliber," Richard continued. "Someone with their own accomplishments, their own strength. Instead, he's got a wife who can't hold down a job, who looks half dead most of the time, who contributes nothing to this family's legacy." "Richard." Helen appeared in the doorway, her face distressed. "It's fine," I said quietly. "It's not fine. Jacob deserves better. He's sacrificed everything for his country, his body, his peace of mind, years of his life. And what have you sacrificed? What have you done that matters?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Jake came back then, reading the room instantly. "Dad, what did you say?" "The truth. Something should be said before she drags you down further." Richard stood. "She's failed you, Jacob. Failed this family. And I won't pretend otherwise anymore." I felt Jake move toward his father, the violence in it barely contained. I caught his arm. "Don't. He doesn't get to, Jake." I looked up at him. "Show him." His face changed. Sarah, no. You don't have to. Show him the photo. The one from your first deployment. The one you keep in your wallet. Jake's jaw tightened. Slowly, he pulled out his wallet, extracted a photo worn soft at the edges. He held it out to his father. Richard took it. His face went blank, then white. The photo showed Jake in full kit, somewhere sandy and hot, grinning at the camera with his swim buddy. Between them, smaller but equally geared up, was a woman with a rifle and hard eyes. Me. Richard's hand trembled. When was this taken? Ramadi. 2009. Jake's voice was flat, controlled. My first deployment with the teams. That's Sarah. Then Petty Officer First Class Sarah Chun, Naval Special Warfare Development Group. The room tilted. Helen grabbed the doorframe. DevGru, Richard whispered. The designation alone was enough. Most people called it SEAL Team 6, but operators and their families knew the real name. You're saying she was a contractor? An analyst? Jake's words were sharp now, precise. No, Dad. She was an operator. Combat Applications Group, Intelligence Support Detachment. She served with me for 3 deployments. Iraq twice, Afghanistan once. Before that, she did 2 tours with conventional SEAL teams as an intelligence specialist. I watched Richard's face cycle through disbelief, confusion, and something that might have been horror. Women don't serve in DevGru, Richard said, but his voice was uncertain. Women didn't serve officially in direct combat roles, I said quietly. But they did serve. We were called cultural support teams initially, then attached to special operations as enablers. We kicked doors with the teams. We cleared rooms. We interrogated female targets, did sensitive site exploitation, provided real-time intelligence support in kinetic environments. Sarah was the best intelligence operator in our squadron, Jake said. She spoke Arabic and Pashto fluently. She could process a target package faster than anyone I've ever seen. She saved lives, Dad. American lives. SEAL lives. Richard set down his scotch with a shaking hand. Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't Jake mention? Because I asked him not to. I stood, feeling the old familiar ache in my left leg where the titanium rod ran from knee to ankle. Because my service was classified. Because most of what I did is still classified. And because I met his eyes. You made it clear from the moment we met that nothing I said would change your mind about me. Helen crossed the room and took my hands. Her eyes were wet. Oh, sweetheart. You've been listening to him tear you apart, and you couldn't even defend yourself. Operational security is operational security, I said, even with family. How long? Richard asked hoarsely. How long did you serve? 12 years active duty. Made Chief Petty Officer at 28, which is young for Naval Special Warfare. I did 7 deployments total. The last one was Afghanistan, 2014. We were supporting a hostage rescue. 2 aid workers held by Taliban. During exfil, our helicopter took an RPG. 7 people on board. 5 walked away. Jake's hand found mine. His grip was tight. Sarah spent 11 months at Walter Reed, he said. Multiple surgeries. Traumatic brain injury. Shattered femur. Internal injuries. She was medically retired at 32 with a disability rating that would make your stomach turn. The consulting work is all I can manage some days, I said. The looking half dead you mentioned? That's what brain injuries look like years later. The weight loss. Chronic pain kills your appetite. The unemployability? Try explaining classified special operations experience on a civilian resume. Richard sat down heavily. His face had gone gray. You want to know what she's sacrificed? Jake's voice was rising now, the controls slipping. She's got a Purple Heart in a drawer she never wears. She's got a Navy Cross citation that's still classified. She's got nightmares that wake her up screaming in languages you don't speak. She's got a body that's held together with hardware and willpower. And she's got a father-in-law who spent 3 years telling her she's worthless. Jacob, I didn't, you did. Jake was shaking now. You met a woman who served at the highest levels of naval special warfare, who operated in the most dangerous places on Earth, who gave everything for her country, and you treated her like she was nothing because she didn't fit your narrow idea of what service looks like. Helen was crying openly now. Sarah, I'm so sorry. If we'd known. You shouldn't have needed to know, I said. You should have just treated me with basic human respect. Richard stood slowly. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Then, with deliberate formality, he came to attention and saluted. I didn't return it. I'm not in uniform, sir. Nevertheless, his hand stayed up, rigid, proper. You've earned it. Have I? The words came out harder than I intended. Or am I only worth respecting now that you know I carried a gun? Would you treat me any differently if I'd been a nurse in a combat hospital? A logistics officer keeping supply lines open? A mechanic fixing helicopters at 3 a.m.? His hand lowered slowly. That's exactly it. I felt the anger finally, burning through the careful control. Service matters, he said, but only the kind you recognize. Only the kind that's visible. Jake matters because he's a SEAL. I didn't matter because I looked weak. You're one of the toughest people I've ever met, Jake said fiercely. You stood in a doorway in Ramadi providing cover fire while we cleared a building. You got us out of an ambush in Hellman by calling in air support while bullets were hitting inches from your head. You carried a wounded teammate 200 meters under fire because he was too heavy for me to move alone. Jake, no, they should know. They should know who you are. He turned to his father. The woman you've been belittling? She has a file at SOCOM that details operations I can't talk about. She's been in rooms with generals and cabinet members. Other SEALs. Men you'd respect instantly. Speak her name with reverence. Richard's face crumbled. I need to apologize. Properly. You need to think, I said, about why you made those assumptions. About what it means that you measured my worth by how much I could perform strength when I'm barely holding together. Helen came closer, hesitant. Can I hug you? I nodded, and she wrapped her arms around me carefully, like I might break. Maybe I might. I knew something was wrong, she whispered. The way Richard talked to you, the way he dismissed you. But I didn't push. I should have pushed. You couldn't have known the details, I said. Most of it's still classified. I signed NDAs that could send me to federal prison. I can't talk about specific operations, targets, or even most locations. She pulled back, holding my shoulders. But we could have asked how you were doing. We could have been kind. Richard was still standing there, looking lost. The uniform that had given him so much authority suddenly seemed like a costume. All show, no substance. I spent 28 years in the Marines, he said quietly. I thought I understood service. I thought I understood sacrifice. You understood your version of it, I said. The visible kind. The kind that gets ceremonies and respect and thank you for your service from strangers. But most service isn't like that. Most people who serve do it quietly, without recognition, without anyone knowing what they've given. Jake's arm was around my waist now, solid and supportive. Sarah can't wear her Navy Cross in public. She can't tell people what she did. She can't even list most of her job history on LinkedIn. She exists in this weird space where she gave everything, and now she has to pretend she gave nothing. That must be. Richard stopped, searching for words. That must be incredibly isolating. It is, I admit it. Especially when your own family thinks you're a failure. He flinched. Good. I'll do better, he said. God. Sarah, I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you if you'll let me. I don't need grand gestures, I said. I need basic decency. I need you to stop measuring people's worth by their visible accomplishments. I need you to consider that maybe, just maybe, someone who looks weak might be the strongest person in the room. Helen wiped her eyes. Dinner's probably cold now, but should we eat? Should we start over? Mom. Jake's voice was gentle but firm. Sarah needs to decide if she wants to stay. She doesn't owe us anything. I looked around the room, at Helen's distressed face, at Richard's collapsed posture, at the photos on the walls documenting a family I'd never quite been part of. Then I looked at Jake, at the man I'd married after he'd seen me at my worst, and stayed anyway. I'll stay, I said finally. But things change. The comments stop. The judgment stops. I'm your son's wife, and I deserve respect, not because I was a SEAL team operator, but because I'm a human being. Yes, Richard said immediately. Yes, anything. And you apologize to every spouse you've dismissed over the years. Every wife or husband who didn't serve, who didn't meet your standards. Because I guarantee you've made them feel this small. I held my finger and thumb an inch apart. That ends now. He nodded, something like shame finally crossing his face. I've been an asshole. A complete asshole. Yeah, Jake said. You have been. Helen ushered us toward the dining room. The table was set beautifully, the food covered but still warm enough. We sat in our usual places, but the dynamic was different now. Shifted, rewired. Can you tell us anything? Richard asked as Helen served. Anything that's not classified. I considered. I can tell you that the work mattered, that the intelligence we provided led to successful operations, that American service members came home because of what my team did. That's not nothing, Helen said. No, I agreed. It's not. And the injuries? Richard's voice was careful now. Are you getting the care you need? VA's a nightmare, but I've got good doctors. The pain management's complicated, but we're working on it. The cognitive stuff is improving. I can remember conversations now, track multiple threads, read for more than 20 minutes. I smiled slightly. 2 years ago, I couldn't do any of that. Jesus, Richard breathed. And I was complaining that you looked tired. You didn't know? That's not an excuse for being cruel, but it is context. Jake's hand found mine under the table. I squeezed back. We ate slowly, carefully. Richard asked questions, general ones, respectful ones. What was SEAL training like? How did I learn languages? What was it like being one of the few women in special operations? I answered what I could, painting around the classified parts, giving them a picture of a career they'd never imagined. Helen cried twice. Richard's face stayed serious, absorbing, recalculating. I wish you could tell people, he said finally. I wish you could walk down the street wearing your trident and getting the recognition you deserve. I don't need recognition, I said. I just need to not be insulted in my own family. You won't be. I swear to you, Sarah. Never again. As dinner wound down, Jake and his father stepped outside. I could see them through the window, having what looked like an intense conversation. Richard's hands were moving, emphatic. Jake's posture was stiff. Helen and I cleared plates in comfortable silence. He means it, she said finally. Richard, when he commits to something, he follows through. He'll be different now. I hope so, I said. For Jake's sake more than mine. He shouldn't have to choose between us. He'd choose you. He should choose you. She touched my arm. You're remarkable, Sarah. I hope you know that. The men came back in. Richard's eyes red. He crossed directly to me. Jacob told me I need to work to earn your trust back. That I can't just apologize and expect everything to be fine. He's right, I said. So I'm asking, will you give me the chance? Will you let me prove I can do better? I looked at Jake. He nodded fractionally. Your choice, the gesture said. I'm with you either way. One chance, I told Richard. You don't get two. I won't need two. He extended his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm, respectful, the way you'd shake hands with another veteran. We left an hour later. In the car, Jake was quiet until we hit the highway. You okay? He asked. I think so. I should have told them years ago. Should have made them understand. You couldn't. My service was classified, and I asked you to keep it quiet. I leaned my head against the window. But maybe it's better this way. Maybe he needed to show his whole ass before he could understand what he was doing. Jake laughed, surprised and relieved. He definitely showed his whole ass. Olympic-level ass showing. World record ass showing. We drove in comfortable silence, the lights of Virginia blurring past. My leg ached, my head was starting to pound, and I'd need to take my evening meds as soon as we got home. But something had shifted tonight. Some weight had lifted. Hey, Jake said softly. I'm proud of you. For staying. For giving him a chance. I did it for you, I said. Because you're worth it. We're worth it, he corrected. Both of us. He was right. We were. And maybe, eventually, his father would understand that worth wasn't measured in visible scars or public recognition or uniforms on display. Maybe he'd learn that the strongest people were often the quietest ones, the ones who'd given everything and asked for nothing but basic human decency in return. Maybe. But even if he didn't, I'd be fine. Because I knew my worth. And that was enough.